Hey guys, this is Hell Hades. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video. Guys, I know what you're saying. Should I level up this rare or not? Today, there are tons of champions in the game. You will get epics which outscale rares actually pretty damn fast. So in this video, I'm going to call out all of the rares that I would 6-star and take them up to max. So one thing I'd say here, there's probably going to be less rares that I call out than you think. And it's because there's just so many good epics and legendaries in the game now. And, you know, over the course of a few months, you're going to pull a lot of epics and legendaries that just straight outscale the rares. So let's just go through and call out the ones which are worth it. So let's start with Bannerlord. No rares would be 6-starred in this faction for me. I don't see any. Valerie's a good rare, and she's worth kind of early game help in certain content, certainly things like Scarabos, but definitely not 6-star worthy champions here for me. High Elves is actually one of the best factions for rares. You've got Apothecary. If you get him early game, definitely worth a 6-star. Still, even if you're playing mid game and you're struggling for Fire Knights and you're struggling for, you know, arena champions, maybe you're struggling to get a 2-for-1 team going on Clan Boss, Apothecary is worth a 6-star and you will get some value from him. All of the starter champions could be 6-starred, but they get outscaled by epics. So they all do good damage. That's the main thing. They're all worthy of a 6-star for arena, especially Elhain would fit into that. Raress is worthy of a 6-star if you're running her alongside Demitha in Clan Boss. Outside of that, probably not worth it. And Reliquary Tender is an awesome rare, but actually pretty damn solid at level 50. And unless you are just looking for someone to 6-star, probably doesn't really need to be taken up to 6-star. Sacred Order then. Again, we've got Aethel here, who's one of the starter champions, can do good damage in the arena and can play in early game Clan Boss. So if you picked her as your starter champion, yeah, take her to 6-star. But if she wasn't your starter champion, probably not worth it. Okay? There's not really anyone in this faction that I think is worthy of a 6-star. Some people might use Templar for like Bommel strats. In that case, you might just want a 6-star in for the extra mastery damage you get through stuff like Warmaster. Outside of that, absolutely not. Let's go to the Barbarians. We've got some good Barbarian rares here. Okay, so Marked is actually a really solid Clan Boss champion. But again, she gets outscaled pretty damn quick. If you are struggling for a block debuff champion, then she could be your answer. And she also gives increased defense at the same time. So she is a good rare. But again, I probably wouldn't 6-star her because I just know that I'm going to get champions that are better than this for the same job. War Maiden, you'll get her early. She's really good early for your account, but probably fine at level 50 until you pull one of the epics with AoE decreased defense. She is easy to book though. She is free to book and she does the job really well. So this is someone that you could consider as a 6-star to advance your account. Another good one in here is Soulbind Bowyer. Actually a really, really good rare. One of the better rares in the game. She has got a decrease turn meter A3, which is fantastic. She's got Ignore Target's Defense A2, which hits really hard. And she's got an AoE A1. So she could be really good in a stun set to get use of this AoE. She could be really good just used for damage. But she definitely can play right through to late game Spider, Fire Knight, and for this faction in Faction Wars. So could be worthy of a 6-star. Outside of that, nobody else. Auckland Tribes then. So the Auckland Tribes basically are well known for being, or were well known for being a really trashy faction. And they kind of improved it over time, but you do have a couple of good rares here. So the Jailer is an incredibly hard-hitting single-target champion, which will help you through stuff like Secret Rooms and this Faction Wars. But again, it's kind of like, depends what you've got. I wouldn't go out and 6-star this dude if I've already got a pretty well-fleshed-out roster. But he is kind of one of those niche champions that just hits incredibly hard with his A1 and A2. He hits really hard with all of his abilities. So one to bear in mind, but only if you really need a kind of single target damage dealer for this faction. The other one, and again, one of the best rares in the game, Bellower, definitely worth a 6-star, especially if you get him earlier on in the game. He can play anywhere. He's an arena champion. He's a campaign farmer. He could come into pretty much any dungeon. And because he drops decent abilities on all of his AoEs, he hits reasonably hard on all of his AoEs. And he can just be awesome in like something like a stun set He's well worthy of a 6-star champion for this rare. So Lizards then. Lizardmen, pretty much all like kind of low-key trash, okay? There's not really anyone that I'm saying go ahead and 6-star. Boardwalker is okay if you need a decreased attack champion for clan boss. You will get better than this. Okay, you just straight up will get better than this. So, again, taking him to 6-star is pretty extreme. Metal Shaper is a really good Scarab boss champion, mainly because of his A2, his shield. You want to book this right down. Worthy of a 50. I wouldn't 6-star him. Haruspex is decent for this faction, for Faction Wars. He's got a revive. He's got a turn me to fill. But I probably wouldn't 6-star him. I'd take him up to 50 and he would be fine to do the job. Skinwalkers. Skinwalkers, actually, considering it's got such few champions, it's got some absolute bangers in here. So Greybeard is a fantastic control rare. AoE freeze, very nice. He's got a bit of a provoke as well. Worthy of a 50, probably wouldn't level 60 him. Probably doesn't need it. Fleshmonger, similar. He's got an AoE drop defense ability here. Good level 50, probably doesn't need to be a 60. Nullhorn is one of my favourite rares. He's an absolute control freak. Doesn't do any damage at all. In fact, he can't even crit. I think he's the only champion in the game that's incapable of hitting with a crit. Dude, get to the gym. But Nullhorn has got this AoE provoke, and he's got this unkillable buff. It makes him super useful for controlling enemies. Yeah, he soaks in all of the damage. Doesn't do any damage himself. He just soaks it all up and can't die. Makes him incredibly good. Probably worthy of a 60 for that reason, but you could run him at 50 doing the same. It's just harder to get to the kind of stats that you want to make it a truly unkillable champion. Grappler is one of the surprise packages in here. He actually does a lot of damage, and he's got a pretty damn useful kit. Again, would I take him up to 60? I mean, only if I was really struggling for champions, honestly. But a better faction than most. So, Orcs then. In terms of Orcs, I mean, honestly, you've got Gaelic here who's a starter champion, and he's a good champion. Yeah, he will do reasonable damage. If he's your starter, take him up to 60. Outside of that, I would not take a single one of these to 60. Veteran is the only... Well, no, that's a lie. Veteran is an option, a bit like what I just said there with the Lizard. Yeah, if you're struggling for a decreased attack on Clan Boss, this guy can do the job. And he's got a couple of buffs as well. He's not a bad champion, actually, and could be a 6-star, but I think you'll just outscale him really quickly. Ironclad is like the niche, awesome champion in this faction. I really love this champion. He's got the most fun passive in the game. I wish they rolled this out to a legendary champion with just a better kit. Because I tell you what, it'd be the first person that I would level up and 6-star. His passive is really fun. And if you've got someone like an apothecary running with this guy, those two can clear the rare secret rooms, just those two. No problem. Because apothecary heals him for max, and he just nukes everybody if he's in a damage build. He has to be a level 60 to do the damage. Because you need to put him in like full savage gear, loads of crit damage, loads of crit rate to get his job done. So he kind of needs to be 60, I think, really. I guess you could get away with him being 50 to do it, but quite a fun champion. Definitely a fun one if you want to experiment with different stuff in the game. Woad Painted's recent buff makes a really good candidate for the healer here as well. Don't think, though, that if you've got someone who just does like a passive heal, like a seal, that he's going to do tons of damage. He is on a cooldown for this damage, so he has to have a turn in between it happening. You know, if you just put him in lifesteal gear, he's not going to do a load of damage. So you do need someone who's going to overheal him by a lot. He is fun, though. Let's get on to the Demonspawn then. Demonspawn rares. Now, you do have the potential of some of the best damage in the game in this set of rares. So, something to be aware of. You've got Hellfang. So, Hellfang's got a passive that when he's with Hound Spawn, he's able to freeze all enemy team. Pretty cool. Let's see what Hound Spawn's got. Will ignore defense if the target is frozen, only when Hellfang's around. Yeah. So basically, you've got the only AoE ignore defense in the game if these two silly dogs are on the same team. Should you 60 them both? Probably not. It's kind of niche, but it is fun. They do a ton of work together. Again, it's one of those kind of fun combos, but perhaps more if you're experimenting with fun stuff than I want to plow all my resources into something. Diabolist here is a good rare, well worth a 50. Definitely for Faction Wars, really strong, but not probably worth taking to 60. Marquez is actually a really strong defense-based damage dealer with her A2. So if you're looking to do damage in the arena with someone that can stay alive, actually Marquez is worth level 60. She needs to be 60 to do that type of work. So could be worthwhile. Hellborn is a good rare. I've 60 to Hellborn. She's in my best best clan boss team that exists in the game. A level 60 rare. Yeah, so in a niche situation, she's good. But if you don't have the full components to make that team work, she's just an okay rare. Probably not worth it. The one that I would call out here, though, is Fellhound, one of the best campaign farmers in the game. Albeit you've got loads of options for campaign farming, but one of the fastest, needs to be a 60 to get that job done. Right, let's move on to the Undeads. Undead rares. We've still got here Frozen Banshee, still a good clan boss poisoner, and needs to be a level 60 to get that job done as well as it can be done. You can run her in unkillable teams at like level 50. At level 60, you gain the advantage of having stuff like Warmaster procs, which boost your damage. Okay, so needs to be 60 in my opinion if you're going to really consider her for clan boss, but can do a job at 50. Grave Chill is a good rare, but I think a lot of rares just outscale her now. She does pair well with Frozen Banshee. Grinner is well worth a 50 for this faction. Gives you some nice revives and support play. Probably wouldn't take him to 60. Corpulent Cadaver is another one of these like world record clan boss champions. If you're not running that world record team, he's trash. If you are, he's awesome. Doomstreech is a good rare here. Pairs well with Marquez that I showed just now for this turn me to fill, but can do the job well at 50. Doesn't need to be a 60. Similar with Seducer. Seducer's a good rare, but I wouldn't take to 60 unless you are really short on this kind of 2-turn block debuffs, which is a great ability, by the way. This guy is underrated, I would say, but can do his job at 50 just as well. Dark Elves then. So we've got one of the only other. So far, I've only really called out 2 or 3 like must 60. A lot of them have been like you could if you need it for this situation. Coldheart is like the must 60 of the gang. She's easily the best rare in the game. She's easily the most end game rare that there is. Albeit, don't 60 her as like your first level 60 champion. She is probably like your 5th or 6th level 60 champion because she gets better as you progress further and further through the game. She's one of the best Fire Knight champions in the game. She's great for most Doom Tower content. She's great for Spider. She's great for Ice Golem. Like, she's just good generally through the game. But she's not your first go-to 60. Her absolute kind of signature move is her A3. She drops turn meter whilst laying the hammer on whatever she's hitting. Yeah, absolutely brilliant champion. Kale, another starter champion here, does a lot of work, does a lot of damage. The best of the starter champions by a long way. Well worth a level 60 as an early game to mid game clan boss champion, and will stay in teams as you progress through in stuff like Arena. Probably Dragon as well until you get better champions. So well worth a 60. Outside of that, you've got some good champions in here. So Judge, actually really good for secret rooms, does a lot of damage. Pretty underrated as a rare. Spirit Host is a good early game rare. She gets outscaled pretty damn quick. I would not take her past 40, honestly, but not bad to have as a kind of one to work on. Paragon, worthy of the Paragon cheese. One of the most fun champions in the game. If you want to go for, what's Cold Brew's thing? The Para Destroyer or something like that. Destroy Para, I don't know, whatever it is. It's fun. And he can help you through some sort of tough levels of Spider if you're struggling with affinity levels. But yeah, he's probably not worth a 60. He's probably worth a 50 at most. Painkeeper, if you're running budget unkillable teams with people like Maneater, is well worth a 60 at that point. But can run her as a 50 if you need to. Good, one of the better rares, but outside of using her for clan boss in that type of unkillable team, you will use her less and less as you progress through the game. Let's go into Knight Revs then. Knight Revs have got Coffin Smasher, really good early game clan boss champion. So it's got a decreased attack A1 and a burn. And it's just a solid champion. Gives you a bit of damage reduction as well. Well worth a level 60 if you get him quite early game. Can also be used later game against Iridoff and Griffin for good decreased attack, consistent champion to just reduce the damage you take from the bosses there. So pretty solid. Outside of that, you've got one more here that I would call out, which is Renegade, but easily can be run as a 50. I would say if you're pushing like really late game, you would then take it to 60 just to get a few more stats and a bit more damage with masteries, but doesn't need to be. It's all about this A3 with her. But yeah, at 50, she still does the same job as a level 60. Okay, last couple of factions then. So we've got Dwarves here. There's a ton of Dwarves. Yeah, there's a ton of Dwarves. There's some pretty damn good Dwarves, actually. So you've got here, let me call out the first one. First one, Madman, does a lot of damage. Yeah, so if you're just looking for a straight damage dealer, he's a crazy fella. He can do it. You kind of need, if you want damage dealers, they kind of need to be 60. So, you know, I'd still say you would get more value from taking epics to level 60 than Madman, but he can do a bit of work. Avir can do a lot of work, but I would say level 50 is plenty for him. Good for faction wars. Got some good abilities. Master Butcher is like a must-use for Bommel if you're struggling with early game Bommel to mid-game Bommel. Got a really cool passive to revive someone and another really cool passive to heal based on damage you take. So as those bombs explode, he heals. Another one explodes, he heals. And it keeps your team alive enough time to at least get the job done. Can do the job at 50 though, so you don't necessarily need to take him to 6-star. Bulwark is a great early to mid-game clan boss champion. In terms of the ability to extend debuffs on the enemy clan boss with his passive is really useful. And he brings a weaken and a burn. So he's worth a 6-star if you get him quite early on and you're struggling for a clan boss setup. You do tend to outscale him over time. Painsmith is a really hard-hitting dwarf and does a lot of work and has got a block revive. Kind of needs to be a 6-star if you're going to use him like that. Can be used to just nuke down big tanks actually in arena or in Doom Tower waves. So quite underrated, pretty cool champion. Dildor is good. Kurzad is good, but again, I wouldn't take them past level 50 personally. So there's quite a lot in here actually that are worth a kind of shout out. Beast Wrestler is also pretty good. Again, I wouldn't take him past 50. So last faction in Shadowkin. For the newest faction, honestly, probably the worst faction for Rares. I wouldn't 6-star a single one of the Shadowkin, especially not Vagabond. So look, there you go. Hopefully that's helped you out. There's not that many Rares. If you think about it, it's probably like, what, 5 that I'm like, yes, 6-star those Rares. Outside of that, there's a few kind of niche cases where you might want to do it. But generally, it's kind of like, wait until you get some better epics because you will get them before long to develop your account. Anyway, guys, I've been Hell Hades. Hope that was useful. I will see you later.